Hartman's Community Centre, Milton, Ontario, Canada. Dragons of Histh, Chapter 1, Part 9. All present knew what that meant. One of the dragon deities had awakened and was about to grant a favor of the dragoness who had just awakened it. Since this was the sacred pool of Histh, it probably meant that the vermin goddess was about to reform the dragoness into a shape appropriate for the favor. Since a serpent's skull had been tossed into the pool, it probably meant that Histh would interpret this as a request by Ida to be turned into a serpent. With Histh, though, you never could tell. If Histh misinterpreted the favor requested, she could just as easily transform Ida into a mosquito or cockroach. Ida clawed her way back over the edge and fled to a remote corner of the ceremonial cavern. In shame and in terror, if she was about to change into a serpent or Histh forbid a mosquito, she didn't need hundreds of dragons looking on as it happened. She was a superior form of dragon, and the thought of transforming into a stupid serpent filled her with terror and revulsion. This was supposed to be her big day. She wanted to be the center of attention. Now it looked like everything was going down the drain. Thus Ida curled up in a ball near Tunnel 17 and hoped desperately that the dragon deities would pass her by. Ida was not the center of attention. Dragonkind can be merciless, and frankly, most of them could care less what happened to Ida. Even Magrath soon forgot about her pupil, as all the celebrants headed back to the feeding trough. Even Ida's embarrassed sisters forgot about her, as they crunched down on lamb and calves and piglets. It was time for tidbits. At the same time, the sacred pool returned to its yellow color. Whilst the crowds munched away at the feeding troughs, the deity who had been called up Histh was searching for the supplicant who had sacrificed a serpent skull into the pool. This deity was, of course, Histh herself, and as she scented the crowds for the scent of the dragon or serpent whose scent she picked up off the skull, she came upon the 5 young dragonesses who had so recently partaken in the serpent-dragon dance. The dance is much more than just a dance, and these 5 dragonesses would have attracted her attention. They had symbolically tweaked the slumbering spirit awake, and as she caressed them in her spirit paws, their scent changed. Their sense became that of great serpents, and they would have trembled at this rather minor metamorphosis, but they did not have the wanted scent. And so the spirit headed for a remote corner of the cavern, where a terrified Ida lay waiting. There was still a few hours before nightfall, so the dragon crowds decided to resume that new ritual dance that had really got them their venom flowing. They all lay in circles on the ground and started coiling and slithering to the beat of the drum. Tappity tap tap boom. For once the serpents weren't herded back to the pens or leashed, but were allowed to participate in one social activity they excelled in. The cavern was a scene of venom spray and roars and hisses from all directions. Those serpents were real party animals. Pretty soon the throbbing of all those pounding bodies seemed to deafen out the sound of the beating drum. But by that time the rhythmic beat was in their blood. They didn't need the drum to get in the mood. Down by the remote corner of the cavern, the first hint that Ida had that something was happening to her was when the dim beat of the drum got louder and louder in her ears. Except to her, it sounded more like thumpity thump thump boom, thumpity thump thump boom. The great serpentess hiss had found an heir. Ida metamorphosized to the beat of that pounding drum. First her breathing rhythm changed. 3 quick intakes of breath were followed by 1 deep rumbling exhalation. Then her heartbeat changed to match the pattern of the drum beat. Then things got serious. It felt to her like her blood was pounding to and fro along the length of her body. First it slammed into the tip of her tail, and then it rushed into the other direction and slammed into her beak hook. Her tail and torso and neck started stretching from this pounding. She dug her talons into her red dragon hide and tried to resist the process, but as her body continued to lengthen, her talons tore through red dragon flesh and into the silver serpent hide forming underneath. She stood tall and erect on her hind legs and uttered a howl of terror and despair. Her serpent hide would not be denied, and that howl quickly turned to a roar of joy and anticipation. Her torso and tail doubled in length, and beneath the torn dragon skin was revealed a lean and slender serpent body. At this point, she toppled to the floor on her thinning legs, collapsed under the weight of her body. Her wings fell limp to the floor, and there was a gush of blood and venom as her flight muscles and quills tore free from her metamorphosizing body.